think that all good things come from consistency.
The way that I look at learning in general is you learn your priorities. And so whatever you deem as that P0 topic is going to be the thing that's top of mind for you to learn right away. You'll watch the YouTube videos on, you'll watch the blog articles, and you'll see the streamers and this and that, You'll do the courses because you've made it an absolute priority that you need to learn this thing. So whatever you deem as a priority, you'll learn.
I think a lot of success in my life has just come from showing up and not giving up. And if you feel like you're on this journey and you feel like it's getting tough,
utilizing your calendar the way that it's supposed to be utilized, meaning your calendar isn't a place to just throw meetings on there. It's like, hey, I really need to get this task done. So boom, block out 45 minutes. Like, I got to respond to emails from my team members. I got to respond to Slack messages. Boom, I'm blocking out 45 minutes right now to make sure I catch up on everything.
I want you to learn two things: active recall and spaced repetition. If you just learn something and then say out loud the things that you learned, you could do a quarter of the work and have better results in terms of that retention and application of your learning.
What's going on, everyone? We are back with another one. I am one of your co-hosts. My name is Danny Thompson. I am the Director of Technology at a company called This Labs.
And I'm Noel, Managing Director of Engineering for a wonderful nonprofit called Resilient Coders and wonderful community member at 100 Devs.
It is a wonderful community. All right. Hey. We are going to do something a little different today that we haven't done yet. And y'all have been sending in questions, obviously, through email. I've seen questions come in through the comments. We've been kind of compiling them together. And I think it would be really valuable for us to kind of answer a couple of them on the episode today. And so that's kind of what we're thinking about doing. And honestly, it's our way of making sure, like, if you're in the community and you're asking something, we're prioritizing that and making sure you're walking away with something. I'm often a big believer in one thing: value for time. And so every single week that y'all come here, you listen to the episode, and I want to make sure it's worth your time. I saw, as of the time of recording this, we have posted 17 episodes, and I believe we have like 20 to 21 already recorded. So it's like we've made a decent dent in the consistency of keeping this thing going. And, they say, I saw the stat the other day. It was like 83% of podcasts fail before episode 6.
Yep.
And so just by continuing, we're in the top 17% already. And from there, I mean, we're ranked as of right now 43 globally for tech podcasts. So I think like that's a big situation to be in. And I will say, I'm pretty proud of this. I saw the live version of the Programming Podcast website actually up and running. So it's live, y'all. If by the time you hear this, you can absolutely go to the website, click around, support it. We're going to be adding in way more stuff in there as far as like we have several episodes previously where we said we would have XYZ, whether it's like a checklist or the contracts that we've used for freelancing and things along those lines. That'll be included there, but also other interesting resources that we come across that maybe you can find benefit with. And also on the website, you can sign up for our newsletter. And one thing that we're going to try and do with this newsletter is obviously value for time. But if there's interesting articles that we come across or things that we think you could truly benefit from a technical perspective or developer perspective, it's going to be worth your time there. So highly recommend checking that out as well. Any thoughts around that, Leon?
I think that all good things come from consistency, right? And I think a lot of us, especially folks that are listening, they're deep on the job search process. They're deep in the learning process. And I think some of the questions we even have today kind of hint on this too. And I think a lot of success in my life has just come from showing up and not giving up. And if you feel like you're on this journey and you feel like it's getting tough, don't give up. Keep showing up. Get the support that you can get. And I've been in the game for a while. I've seen folks come and go, and I really do think that at the end of the day, it's just you keep showing up. You keep putting one foot in front of the other. If you can do that, you're going to get to where you want to go. And so kudos to all of you that are on this journey with us, that have been here on the podcast since day one. It means a lot. And like we said, we want to take today to answer some of the questions that are coming in. We really haven't done a Q&A episode yet. We do sneak one at the end of each episode, but there's 2 or 3 big ones that we wanted to tackle because they came from y'all. You send it to the email address, we see them, and we want to make sure that we're hearing from you and answering those questions and giving that value for time, like Danny says. So can we jump right into it?
Now, here's the interesting part of this episode. Leon has no clue what questions I will be bringing from the email.
Let's
So
go.
I think this is going to be fun to see. We all know Leon is very quick-witted. I know that. I've come to appreciate that. So we're definitely going to test it. I've got like a question that I think is a curveball. I've got some questions that I think are really, really interesting. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be valuable. And so we're going to see how Leon does. If Leon does bad, this is my vow to all the listeners.
Oh.
If Leon does bad, the editor will not be cutting this out.
All right. Let's do it. Just so y'all know, this is 9 a.m. in the morning for me. It's in between. It's during my lunch. Doing my lunch
literally.
for this. But let's go. I'm ready. Let's do it.
This is my lunch break as well, like right on it. Okay. Question number 1. I apply to roughly 10 to 20 jobs a day, and the only emails I get back are scam jobs. I'm completely effed. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. How can I make an adjustment here?
Got it. Quick way to come through. You're clicking apply. That's the first mistake. You're a clicker. Got to change it up. So what do we mean by that? Right now, we exist in the world where you actually do have to click apply because certain jobs that open up close within 24 hours. But the advice that we've been giving for a very long time is that clicking apply is the first step of a series of things that you have to get done right. Once you see an open role, that means that company is hiring. That should be put on a list of companies that you know are actively hiring roles that suit you. Once you have a company on that list, you must find real living, breathing humans that are on that list for that company. So you're going to find recruiters if possible. You're going to find anybody that might be hiring for that role if possible. You're going to find engineers at that company if possible, and figure out a way to contact them. You're going to try LinkedIn. When they ghost you on LinkedIn, you're going to try Twitter. When they ghost you on Twitter, you're going to use a tool like Hunter to find their email. You're going to send an email. And if you do that with every single company that you see has an active opening in your local environment, you start to build up this log of people that you have real relationships with that can get your application out of the gutter and into the hands that actually matter. So the first step is thinking that clicking apply does anything. It doesn't. If I could scream something from the top of the mountains, it would be that clicking apply does not work for most people. Now, one person gets lucky and then everyone else follows suit, but by and far, at a macro level, you have to be doing more than just clicking apply. So you've done your networking your way in. The other thing, too, is you need a sniff test. Your resume, what does it look like? Pass it through cvcompiler.com, completely free. It'll tell you what the ATS is seeing. Most people that I work with pass their resume into an ATS checker, and you get to see like the dread go over their face because they've been sending out a resume that hit 12%.
Yep.
They've been click and apply with a 12% resume that's not hitting any of the things that the job's looking for. You're automatically not getting past that check. Most of the time, it's not even you. It's just the robots that are saying you're not worth it going to the recruiter based off of what we see in the resume. So don't click apply. Network your way in. Get a sniff test on your resume. Then Google yourself. What shows up? Is there anything wild that somebody would see and then not respond to you? Fix those 3 things, guaranteed you start getting more responses.
I will also say one extra thing on this. The scam jobs, it's part of it. It's with everything. There's no shortage of scammers in any industry or any area. If there's a way people can get scammed, they're going to scam. It's just part of life. Unfortunately, it sucks, but it's true. The thing that I would say here is outside of just the applying thing, you need to audit your process. I'm a big believer, and I even said this literally this morning to the cohort that we're doing. It seems like a lot of y'all are so busy running as fast as you can in a circle without realizing you're making zero progress forward. No one is auditing where they currently are. Like, it's so crazy. Like, people are confusing movement with success, feeling like the more that I do, the more successful I'm going to be, without realizing I'm just doing the same thing over and over and over with no progress. It's very, very, it's interesting to see in real time because, you know, I'm very big on auditing my things, mainly because I've gone through this before. But seeing it firsthand, people go through this perpetual cycle over the course of several weeks, and they're doing the same things week 4 that they're doing week 1, thinking like, man, I'm killing it right now because I'm doing so much. But it's like, well, what if we remove this process? You've just done less work but more progress forward, which obviously means a better rate of success. So when it comes to like applying and stuff like that, are you auditing what that process looks like? Like, are you just going through everything manually? Are you not looking at what your LinkedIn looks like? Are you not looking at how full your calendar is getting? One thing that I've often said is, especially when it comes to the job search and things like that, I'm very protective of my calendar when I'm working. But when I'm not, it's like, I need this thing filled up with conversations, meetings, coffee chats. It doesn't even matter if that coffee chat isn't with somebody who's in like the dream organization that I want to work in. Let me get a conversation with somebody. Like maybe they have a connection somewhere. And one prime example of that is I had a random conversation with somebody 4 weeks ago. Didn't think it was going anywhere, to be honest with you. And literally yesterday, I get this email where it's that person and the vice president of a very large major organization. And they're like, I met with Danny 4 weeks ago. We had such a great conversation. I really like what Danny's doing. I think y'all will hit it off. I think y'all should connect.
Yeah.
You know what that is in networking? For me, when it comes to networking, there's several stages. Like you have the stage of like, I'm networking with my peer. And networking doesn't have to be like, I'm providing value immediately right now. The other stage of networking could be a connector where it's like, I don't really know what to offer this person, but like I can connect them with somebody, right? And you know what ends up happening? The person I connect them with is happy because I connected them with somebody, right? Like they're like, oh, I love this. The person that's getting connected with loves it as well. And guess who they remember? Danny. And so now I come top of mind because both of them are going to be happy that I made that introduction. Yeah. And so maybe later down the road, they're going to want to make an introduction for me or something along those lines. So being a connector is always fantastic. And so adding and increasing your network in that regard is always going to just be a win at that point, right? So it's like, why hesitate against that? But yeah, so I would be auditing that, go through all that process, really think about what you're doing. And if you find yourself just being a quote unquote clicker, you need to fix that. You need to look at the whole process very objectively.
Hopefully you're liking that episode, and we'll get back to the conversation in a second. But first, a word from our sponsors. Financial literacy is important, especially if you are in a position where you are changing careers and income brackets. More income can create larger financial issues if you don't budget correctly. So this episode is sponsored by Lucas Casares, certified financial planner and founder of Level Up Financial Planning, where he specializes in serving early and mid-career tech professionals to help you take your financial confidence to the next level.
Danny and I have helped thousands of people level up in tech, often going from 0 to 6 figures careers and seen all kinds of mistakes. Level Up Financial Planning helps you gain clarity on all your finances. This includes prioritizing, managing employer stock, retirement planning, tax planning and preparation, college planning, and as a special deal for our listeners, you can get a complimentary meeting with Lucas. All you have to do is visit levelupfinancialplanning.com to find out more.
Lucas is awesome. A lot of people already checked it out from the previous episodes. Give it a check. Back to the episode.
And sometimes you need an outside perspective too. It makes me think, I said caucus race in Alice in Wonderland. If you read Through the Looking Glass or the movie, the dodo's leading the caucus race. So they're just running around in a circle around a rock, just going over and over again in a circle. And they're all just in a circle. And sometimes you don't realize that you're in the circle. You're doing the same things over and over again. And when people start to say weeks without responses, months without responses, as soon as those words start coming out of your mouth, you got to realize there has to be a better way. How are all these other people getting jobs? How are we seeing like people get employed? Like you have to sit there and be like, all right, I'm not gonna be critical of myself, but I have to at some point say there has to be a better way. And sometimes you need somebody to pull you out of that race. You need somebody to look at your stuff and be like, actually, that's not moving the needle. That's not actually getting you closer to your goal. And that's why I think community is really important, right? I think participating in these different communities help you see what you're doing that might not be pushing you closer to your end goal and can help you see the thing that you're not seeing. So if you're listening now and you're saying, I haven't gotten responses in weeks or months, I'm telling you right now, there's something you can fix. And if you can't see it, you should join our community so that we can help you see it.
All right, next question here. Hey, Danny and Leon, I recently landed a junior DevOps position at an MSP. It has been an amazing opportunity, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. However, the shift in my life has introduced a flow of learning and tasks that I am not accustomed to handling efficiently. I've been doing the best that I can to make improvements to my workflow via task lists and taking better notes. Apart from that, what are ways that you guys manage your workload to get tasks done faster than they come in?
Folks that don't know, I'm a big nerd around adult learning theory. And so there are just some things that don't work when it comes to learning. So if you know that your time is limited and learning is at a premium, meaning when you're on the job, you have to learn all these new things very, very quickly. You don't have the privilege of crappy learning habits. So there's some very quick fixes that most people that are listening could do. You could do Dr. Barbara Oakley's Learning How to Learn course on Coursera, completely free, one of my favorite courses of all time. It'll give you all of the real strategies that you need to actually study effectively. Now, the word that I started, for folks that are not watching but listening, I started to fake kind of stab myself through the heart there when you said note taking. Notes don't work. If you're taking notes, if you are highlighting, it does not work. These are things that we convince ourselves are effective uses of our time, but in the long run, Danny, when was the last time you looked at your notes from high school?
I'll be real, I never took notes in high school, so this explains why I don't have the degree.
Well, I'll tell you how most people do it. They don't ever look at their notes. Even if they're learning something new recently, they'll write it down, they'll highlight it, it goes on a piece of paper, that piece of paper gets lost within a month or so.
Yeah.
And even for the folks that do crack open that notebook, look at the notes, it's still inefficient. And the reason why it's inefficient is because we have something called a learning curve. The things that we learn will eventually decay in our mind. Now, there's something called the Ebbinghaus curve, which is not really replicated, I think, enough, but they did a quick thing where they remembered 3 key letters. And after the balloons popped up, after 20 minutes, there was a significant chance they had forgotten those 3 letters already. And by the end of 30 days, there was at least an 80% chance that they had forgotten those 3 letters. And it was just 3 letters. Now imagine trying to remember all these complex topics, all these complex ideas, all these things that you're trying to learn. You're just going to forget. And so the worst thing is when somebody comes to us and says, Leon, there's a premium on my time. I don't have a lot of it. I'm going to put in the effort to learn, and then a couple days later, they just forget it. That's the worst thing ever. So do Dr. Barbara Oakley's Learning How to Learn course on Coursera, completely free. Don't pay for the cert. You don't have to. Then I want you to learn 2 things, active recall and spaced repetition. If you just learn something and then say out loud the things that you learned, you could do a quarter of the work and have better results in terms of that retention and application of your learning, just by saying out loud the things that you just learned. Then, as you're doing your reading and learning, don't take notes, take questions. So if you're learning about links, foreshadowing to a future episode of ours, and you're learning about how they do things different than React Native, don't write down a note, write down, how is links different than React Native? That way, when you get through all of your learning, you go back to your questions and you say, how was it different? And you answer it out loud. You're forcing yourself into active recall, and you're on step 1 of the next thing called spaced repetition. Spaced repetition, now you're going to take all these questions that you think are worthwhile. Some won't be. All the questions you think are worthwhile go into a system called Anki. Anki is like flashcards with an algorithm behind it. Then each day you review some of your Anki cards, you get that spaced repetition, and the things that you put in all that effort to learn, you don't forget. So it's a little bit of a process, but if you do those 3 key things, not only will we be able to learn faster, you won't forget. And then we can also maybe talk about like time management, but the first part is like getting your study habits down so that you can be effective with the time that you do carve out.
You know, you've mentioned this course several times. I still have not taken it, but it's funny that as of right now, I'm on like day 60 of learning Spanish, right? And I'm using several tools. I have like workbooks on my desk, but I also use a popular app that has like a bird as a mascot, right? That's everybody knows. Yeah, it's back to life. This is a whole thing now. But anyway, not saying the name, but I use it. And it's funny because it wasn't until we had the conversation about that course that I realized they are using that exact same method to help people remember the vocabulary in Spanish. Because, and obviously other languages as well, but in Spanish is the only one that I'm taking, so I can only reference that one. And it's like I'm very far ahead in my Spanish learning. And just like 4 days ago, I got, whenever you log in, like the first exercise that you do is often like something of the past, but I got one that was like from over a month and a half ago. It was like the most basic words, but it's like making sure you remember them. And I was like, oh, I know how to say, mujer and hombre and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, like this is like week one stuff, but it recalled it even though I'm so far ahead. And so that spaced repetition is an active part of that. Here's the several things that I'll address on here. Number one, I think you kind of knocked out everything in regards to learning. I think all that is great. I will definitely say when it comes to learning, I think I've said this before, I have never, ever been the type of person that's like, I'm just learning this for the sake of learning it. It's like I can read an article on it or I can get familiar with it, but there's no way I'm ever dig down deep on something unless there's some incentive somewhere for me to utilize it. And so often building random projects where I'm like, okay, I now have to implement XYZ of this new thing. And in that implementation process, I learned so much. That has kind of constantly been my way of learning. Now, when I'm at an organization, anything that comes across my desk has an incentive to learn because it's relevant to my job. And so the way that I look at learning in general is you learn your priorities. And so whatever you deem as that P0 topic is going to be the thing that's top of mind for you to learn right away. You'll watch the YouTube videos on, you'll watch the blog articles, and you'll see the streamers and this and that, You'll do the courses because you've made it an absolute priority that you need to learn this thing. So whatever you deem as a priority, you'll learn. Now, if you start putting other work tasks ahead of the thing that you need to learn, and now you're like, I still need to learn this thing and I haven't learned it and I know it's relevant, what you do then, in my opinion, because I see it all the time with juniors, is you've created a level of stress that didn't need to exist because you know this is a task you have to get done, but you haven't deemed it valuable. So what I do then, and this is an exercise I've done with like pretty much all my juniors, I still believe that is valuable in a professional setting, is utilizing your calendar the way that it's supposed to be utilized. Meaning, your calendar isn't a place to just throw meetings on there. It's like, hey, I really need to get this task done. So boom, block out 45 minutes. Like I got to respond to emails from my team members. I got to respond to Slack messages. Boom, I'm blocking out 45 minutes right now to make sure I catch up on everything. Oh, I need to really do this task because one part of your question was, how do I deal with all the work items that are coming my way, right? How do I get my workload to get tasks done faster? Prioritize them on your calendar. Like, I have to do this thing right here. Boom, here's a 2-hour block that I'm going to block off. And so then the other thing that ends up happening is if people are on your team and they're wanting to schedule meetings with you, you know what they do? They are going to message you and say, hey, I really need to schedule time with you, but I see during this time slot, you're going to be learning about XYZ initiative that we're doing here. This seems like it's important. Do you want to move that around or should I move this meeting around? You get to protect your time to where you're doing the most important things for us. But the other thing is you need to adhere to the time on the calendar. What's the point of making this a block and you're like, well, I'll just push it back. I won't do it. It's the same headache all over again. So my rule has always been everything is an idea until it gets on my calendar. Now this is a mandatory task. So if I actually take the initiative, if Danny of now is like, it's important for Danny in the future. Danny in the future has to respect what Danny of now has deemed important. You can't push it to the side. And so I think that's probably the best way to manage your workload and tasks that come your way. That my calendar, you'll see like throughout the entire day, it's constantly packed with things that I'm doing. So that way I'm like, I know at this time, like I'm on a call with this client. At this time, I know, oh, I need to be on the one of the engineering teams. We got to talk about this initiative. Or, we're building this new feature. How does this work?
They said a little bit about like the stress too. It's such a freeing thing for you to live by the calendar. I was teaching, and so I finished teaching, and I like ran through like the living room, and my wife is like, what are you doing? I was like, I think I have a podcast right now. Like, I didn't know. I just like saw it pop up. I'm like, I'm not sure if it's there. And that is like, I just followed it. I just went and did it. Like completely not like any, like my day is just, I follow the calendar. And it's such a freeing thing to not have to stress. I just do go where it tells me to go and I show up. And so that idea of planning it out is great. And then also like taking some time at the beginning of your week to do it. Like also schedule on the calendar the planning of the calendar. Otherwise, once you get too deep into the week, it might be a little bit too hard to figure out what time is yours and not what yours and schedule it around. And so make it part of your ritual, make it part of a de-stressing ritual too. Like, how much better do you feel when you know you're planned out, your week is planned out, and you just got to do what it says, you know?
You know, I saw a post the other day. I won't say by who because I consider him a friend, but he said, I see people brag about how packed their calendars are, and it seems like they're not protecting their time. And so to me, it's like, this really depends on your goal, because if my goal is to maximize my ROI and income streams, I want my calendar packed. Like, all those relationships will bring some form of income if things go right. Like, why would I ever want to disregard that? And so if your goal is to increase potential earnings or increase relationships, things like that, your calendar needs to be pretty active. If your goal is like, I'm very comfortable where I am, I don't need new business, I don't need new freelancing opportunities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you're probably good with a very minimal calendar. I will definitely say, I have come to learn, and it took me many years to realize this, but the more active a calendar is, you can often equate that to how successful an individual has become. If I can go up to somebody, I'm like, hey, you know, let's hang out next Tuesday at 2 p.m. And their immediate answer is like, let's do it. It's like, oh, you didn't check your calendar? Like, you ain't got nothing going on? Like, to just say spur of the moment, like, yeah, I know for a fact I'm open on next Tuesday. Yeah. For me, if anyone asks me like, hey, let's do this thing, I'm like, let's look at the calendar, man. I got to find an opening somewhere. Like, there's
How
no
many
way.
times have we just sat here looking at, like, just like,
Literally.
oh, no, we can put it in here this time to record for like 10 minutes of us just digging through it to find that block. And I get where people say that, like, yes, like, I think some people can see it as a negative, right? Like, oh, your time is so scheduled out. But no, it's an overwhelming positive for me because I have non-negotiables with my time. Like, I do not miss picking my little one up, right? Mm-hmm. I do not miss making dinner, do not miss playtime, do not miss bedtime. And so I make sure that I have some non-negotiables in my schedule. And to have those non-negotiables, to have those blocks of freedom and flexibility, the rest of my day has to be managed, and to a very high degree, or else I don't accomplish the things I want to accomplish. I don't get the momentum, like you're saying, that I want to have, and then I have to compromise the time that I don't want to compromise.
I can go on about this. I'm going to stop because I just know exactly where this is going to go. Yeah. And so this one actually came in literally this morning. I did answer them, but I think this will be good. To be completely honest, though, part of this answer has already been answered. Still be good nonetheless. This is directed towards me. I recently read your post about having a laser-focused approach to job applications. And not just job applications, but like applying to jobs and getting hired, et cetera, et cetera. I guess this goes in the theme of the last couple questions that we've already answered. As someone who's recently been laid off, currently my mind process is hectic and unbalanced at the shock. I don't know how to approach this. This has never been something that I've dealt with before, which sucks, by the way. Going back and forth between a mentality of grit, where I need to know, I need to now go back into the song and dance of applying, cold calling, getting ghosted, etc., and doing whatever it takes to gain another position, but also uncertainty and fear, and I don't know what's going on. I think I just need a bit of guidance at this moment. Could you impart some of these laser-focused strategies? I have a whole take on this. I'm going to let you go first.
I am showing the camera a Pomodoro timer. This is just a timer. And so when you have all of that pressure, anxiety, doubt, worry, this is the time to realize your life falls into two categories: working hard or recharging hard. If you are not recharging hard, you will not be able to work hard, and you will not get to where you want to go. And so for me, in those moments and most of my moments throughout the day, I use a Pomodoro timer where I've built up, when I first started, I was not at this level, but I built up to 45 minutes of focus and then 15 minutes of recharge. And with those 15 minutes, I go for a walk, I stand in the sun, I spend time with family, I do something that's completely removed from the task at hand. Because if you just sit at your desk and wallow in the roller coaster that is the job search process, it becomes quite overbearing. And the problem I see most with job seekers is they stay in this gray area where they're not really doing things that are forward momentum for their job search, and they're not really doing anything that would help them recharge so that they could be more active. They feel this tension or pull to just like be present, but not really doing the thing they need to do, where they're probably better off giving themselves some grace, a little bit of a break, recharging in that moment so that they can let some of the stress and anxiety go a little bit. And I know you have a lot on the line. You got to put food on the table, but I'm telling you, if you give yourself that focus and diffusive mode, you will get to where you want to go faster because your brain will not be scrambled. And so for me, that's the first thing that pops into mind is be careful with your time, either work hard, recharge hard, and don't go into your day like an accident. Have a plan. Just like we were saying with the schedule, have a plan for your day. And then the last major piece is that burnout happens as a result of you putting in effort and not getting an outcome. And so on the job search process, it's very easy for people to get burnt out because every day they're doing stuff, but they're not getting that reward. And so what you have to do is break down that gargantuan task of getting the job into small daily things that you could be doing that give you forward momentum. I'm going to do 5 coding challenges. I'm going to do 20 reaches out for connections. I'm going to do an hour of building in my portfolio, whatever those pieces you need to work on, but things that are fully in your control. At the end of the day, you can say, I did that. I accomplished what I set out to accomplish. And with enough momentum, you can get to where you want to go. Those are kind of the key things I think of right off the bat.
Okay. I think there was a lot of good points in there. For me, there's a couple things that I want to address. Number one, getting laid off sucks. Like,
for sure,
my heart goes out to you. It sucks. Take time if you need to like recover. One person that I consider a very, very close individual to me, Lawrence Lockhart, who we will eventually have on this podcast. He went through something similar, and he was like, everyone, of course, reaches out immediately, like, oh, I'm sorry this happened, la, da, da. I waited a couple days, and he knew, and I was like, I already know your inbox is full, dude. I don't want to bombard it, but I was like, I'm sorry that you're going through this. He's like, man, I just need to take a couple days. He went off social media, went off everything, took a couple days to like find himself again, and this dude hit the ground running. Mm-hmm. And so my rule has always been, when something catastrophic happens, you deserve time to like realize, absorb what happened. But if that time that you take to realize it and go through it is a month from now, 2 months from now, you're still in the same situation, like that goes from being an emotional response, like you're holding yourself back. Like there has to come a point where you're like, I have to now get up and I got to hit this ground running. Yeah. And right now, Lawrence is doing all the things that we all preach. And this dude is in like, God knows how many numbers of interviews, and he's like making it to this round, and like he's having meaningful conversations. And one thing that he said is like, man, I've gone through a couple roles. I don't want to go into a role that I'm not happy about. This man is like in a position where he can tell an employer like, hey, you know what, this isn't working for me. Boom. So how does that happen? In my opinion, when an emotional, unstructured thing happens, structure is the only way to truly make progress out of it. And the way that you do that is kind of what I've said already. Use your Google Calendar, have the calendar on your phone, and make it your homepage on your browser. Section off parts of the days for each task. This is the time where I'm going to be applying to jobs. This is the time where I'm replying to emails and messages. This is the time I'm sending out emails and messages. Have that structure there. Follow it. Start filling up your calendar with coffee chats and with like people from the orgs that you want to work at. And then people that you meet at meetups and interviews, etc. Networking will play like one of the biggest parts of you getting that role. But also those conversations will let you feel human again, because like being laid off and like you feel like you're a tiny speck in the earth, right? Like no one's talking with you, no one's conversing with you. That can kind of bring you back into that mode of like feeling alive again. And so that would be really valuable. When I say laser focused, I often mean not being distracted by the shiny things on the side. And often when we come to like even web development in general, front-end development in general, every single week there's a new framework, there's a new tool. In AI right now, what is all the AI hype? Every single new model that comes out, they're like, ooh, what is this? And everyone flocks without even realizing what's actually being useful here, or vetting it, right? When you look at the average organization, especially enterprise level orgs, they're still using like old quote unquote versions of technologies. Matter of fact, at JConf, a Java conference, right? They always do an audit in the room where it's like, hey, how many of y'all are using Java 8? How many are you using Java 11? How many are using Java, all these extra versions? And it's like Java 11, I think, was like 40% of the room. And like, there was an AI talk going on, and I'm like, what the hell are you even doing in this room? You can't use no AI tools and no Java 11. Like, you need to prioritize, updating your versioning before you think about trying to implement AI stuff here. Like, it doesn't make sense. Vast majority are doing that. So if you're wasting your time learning every new technology, which it's not really a waste because you're learning something, but at the same time, too, it's like, majority of the companies you talk to, they're not going to be in that same conversation. So it's like, what are you doing to maximize that time to get forward and progress forward somewhere? Because I can tell you right now, one thing that we did at this.labs was helping a very, very large org finally migrate from Vue 2 to Vue 3. And like when they tried to do it themselves, it was a huge mess. And we came in and luckily we were able to kind of solve for them. But like they were on Vue 2 where a lot of people weren't. And so it's like they had to finally make that migration. That's a big part of business. So you want to be laser focused. Stop being distracted by all the shiny things on the side. Be very focused on your approach. Audit where you're having success. Audit when you're not having success. Audit how your messages are being read. Audit what is like the rate of reply. And like if you're not getting a lot of replies, can we look at, is the message the reason why? Is the profile the reason why? Is my approach to trying getting them in the conversation the reason why? Like where is the disconnect at? I think our previous episode, if I'm not mistaken, we'll talk about like how to warm up those conversations and the strategies that we had. And so like even that could probably be a factor here. And so hopefully that can kind of help you out, but be very, very focused on your approach for like a couple months and you'll start seeing good results. Ask Danny and Leon, since we basically did that this whole episode. But I think there was a lot of good value here and I'm kind of happy with it. So if you have questions, y'all know where the email is at, and I'll tell you the exact email. It's always in the show notes every single time, but it is Danny and Leon's, with an S, podcast@gmail.com. The email will always be in the show notes or the video description on YouTube. If you listen to this podcast on Spotify all the time, or Spotify is definitely our largest listening platform, so thank you all on Spotify. By and large, we get listenership on a lot of audio platforms like Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, etc. But Spotify, it's like 90-1. So thank y'all so much on Spotify. Spotify gets extra love here. But if you're on Apple Podcasts, a lot of love to you too. If you're on Pocket Cast, a lot of love to you too.
Shout out Amazon Music. That was the
Amazon
one.
Music. We have a couple percent on Amazon Music. Shout out to y'all. I will also say, if you're not subscribed to us on YouTube, please do so. Check us out. We're trying to grow that channel. We've passed a very big milestone to me of 1,000 subscribers. And you know what's crazy about that? And I'll even say this like to the podcast episodes, folks. We literally only post there like once a week. So the fact that it's even grown to that, mind-blowing to me. Because I was like, we post once a week. There's not a lot of activity there. I don't necessarily know if this thing is going to grow. I remember us having that conversation. And I'm like, man, it seems like every week or every month, we're getting like 200 new subscribers, 300 new subscribers, which I think is pretty cool. But I'll say, it's like the watch hours is the thing that's been blowing my mind. And so it's like people are landing on this thing, which is cool. But the fact that y'all are sticking around for as long as you are, it really goes to like re-emphasize that I think we're on the right track to doing the things that we need to be doing. Because like, dude, the channel's been up for what, 2 months? We're already on the YouTube channel alone. We're already past 2,500 watch hours. So it's like, it blows my mind. Now, so yeah, if you can on Spotify or whatever audio podcast platform you're listening to, subscribe to us on YouTube. It's a great way to catch the podcast in video format on those platforms, but also where we're going to be posting clips and all the good stuff. So there's stuff that you can grab there. And if you are listening to this on an audio platform, please drop a like, rate the podcast for us. It really helps out in a big way. It shows that people are actually listening to this thing, which is really cool. But honestly, it's motivation for us to keep this thing going. Like we want to have one of the biggest podcasts around, not in terms of size, but in terms of value. Like we can always get big guests. Luckily, Leon and I both have a really amazing network that we can always tap into. And I don't necessarily know if that's the right angle for this. I think for us, the way that we've approached each guest has been, who do we think can have the most meaningful conversations that the community can benefit from? If y'all want a specific guest, let us know. More than happy for that feedback. But I think I kind of want to keep approaching it the way that we have been. I think it's definitely different than any podcast that I know of, but I feel like, man, the value is just significantly higher for that. So I constantly think about the same thing again, like value for time. And so if this notion is misguided, guide me properly. So send an email, send a comment, and let us know.
Let us know.
Yeah. But outside of that, y'all, it's been real, it's been fun, and we will see you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody.
Peace.